Men are moved by two levers only, fear and self-interest. Napoleon Bonaparte, they tell you everyone's inherently good. That's the lie you've been fed since childhood. The truth is, human nature is a battlefield and most people are playing to win even if it means stepping on you. They hide their motives, mask their intentions, and manipulate the narrative to their advantage. We're here to strip away the illusions, to show you the cold, hard reality of how people truly operate. Forget the fairy tales, forget the wishful thinking. This isn't about judging, it's about understanding. Because only when you understand the game can you begin to play it yourself. The naive believe in inherent goodness. The informed understand strategic advantage. Which side are you on? We're not saying everyone is evil, but everyone is self-interested. And that self-interest often clashes with yours. Learning to recognize those clashes, to anticipate them, is the key to protecting yourself, to achieving your goals, and to navigating the treacherous waters of human interaction. Stop believing what you're told and start seeing what's actually happening. Observe the subtle power plays, the carefully crafted personas, the unspoken agendas driving every conversation. This is about seeing the world as it is, not as you wish it to be. It's about recognizing that empathy can be a weapon and trust a liability. The world isn't a safe space, it's a competition, and ignorance is a losing strategy. We provide the tools, the knowledge, and the perspective to thrive in this competitive landscape. The psychology behind all of this is deeper than surface-level observations. It stems from primal instincts hardwired into our brains over millennia. Survival wasn't about being nice. It was about securing resources, establishing dominance, and ensuring the propagation of your genes. These drives haven't vanished. They've simply been repackaged and refined for the modern world. We see them in the corporate climber ruthlessly pursuing a promotion, in the social media influencer meticulously crafting an image of perfection, in the seemingly harmless coworker subtly undermining your ideas. These behaviors are all rooted in the same fundamental desire: to gain an advantage, to elevate their position, to secure their future, even if it comes at your expense. Understanding this underlying motivation is crucial because it allows you to anticipate their actions, to see through their facades, and to protect yourself from their manipulations. People are not inherently malicious, but they are inherently driven to survive and thrive. And often, that drive can manifest in ways that are detrimental to your own well-being. You need to recognize this, accept it, and learn to navigate it strategically. The key is to understand the psychological vulnerabilities that people exploit, the cognitive biases that cloud their judgment, and the emotional triggers that influence their behavior. Consider the concept of cognitive dissonance. People crave consistency in their beliefs and actions. When they experience a conflict between what they believe and what they do, they feel discomfort. To resolve this dissonance, they often rationalize their behavior, even if it means distorting reality or blaming others. This is why people can justify harmful actions, why they can convince themselves that they are doing the right thing even when they are clearly in the wrong. Understanding cognitive dissonance allows you to predict how people will react to situations that challenge their beliefs, to anticipate their attempts to rationalize their behavior, and to expose the inconsistencies in their arguments. Another powerful force is the desire for social validation. People are inherently social creatures, and they crave acceptance and approval from others. This desire can be exploited to manipulate their behavior, to influence their opinions, and to control their actions. People are more likely to conform to group norms, to agree with popular opinions, and to obey authority figures, even when it goes against their own judgment. This is why propaganda is so effective, why peer pressure is so powerful, and why authority figures can wield so much influence. By understanding the dynamics of social validation, you can resist the pressure to conform, to think critically about the information you receive, and to make your own decisions based on your own values. Then there's the concept of framing. The way information is presented can have a profound impact on how it is perceived. A message framed in terms of potential gains is more likely to be accepted than a message framed in terms of potential losses, even if the underlying information is the same. This is why marketers use persuasive language, why politicians spin their narratives, and why negotiators carefully craft their proposals. By understanding the power of framing, you can recognize how information is being manipulated, to reframe it in your own terms and to make more informed decisions. You must learn to dissect the underlying message, to identify the biases and assumptions that are being used, and to evaluate the information objectively. Furthermore, the concept of reciprocity is deeply ingrained in human psychology. People feel obligated to return favors, to reciprocate kindness, and to repay debts. This principle can be exploited to manipulate their behavior, to create a sense of obligation, and to influence their decisions. By understanding the power of reciprocity, you can recognize when you are being manipulated, to avoid incurring unwanted obligations, and to use the principle to your own advantage. For instance, a subtle compliment can create a sense of indebtedness, making someone more receptive to your requests. A small act of kindness can pave the way for a larger favor down the line. The key is to be aware of the dynamics at play and to use them strategically. Understanding human nature isn't about becoming a cynic or a misanthrope. It's about developing a more realistic and nuanced understanding of the world and the people in it. It's about recognizing that everyone is driven by their own self-interests, that everyone is capable of both good and bad, and that everyone is susceptible to manipulation. By understanding these underlying dynamics, you can protect yourself from exploitation, you can navigate social situations more effectively, and you can achieve your goals with greater success. It's about seeing the world as it is, not as you wish it to be. It's about recognizing that empathy can be a weapon and trust a liability. The world isn't a safe space. It's a competition, and ignorance is a losing strategy. We provide the tools, the knowledge, and the perspective to thrive in this competitive landscape. Imagine a scenario. A young professional, let's call him Mark, is eager to climb the corporate ladder. He's talented, ambitious, but lacks the subtle understanding of office politics that his colleague, Sarah, possesses in spades. Sarah, on the surface, appears to be Mark's ally, always offering help, sharing information, and providing seemingly genuine encouragement. She's quick to compliment his work, to sing his praises to their mutual supervisor, and to offer assistance whenever he's facing a challenge. Mark, naturally, appreciates Sarah's support. He sees her as a valuable colleague and a true friend within the often cutthroat environment of their workplace. He begins to reciprocate her kindness, offering her help with her projects, sharing his insights, and generally going out of his way to make her life easier. This creates a comfortable dynamic built on what Mark perceives as mutual respect and genuine friendship. However, beneath the surface, Sarah is playing a much more calculated game. She understands the principle of reciprocity and is using it to manipulate Mark to her own advantage. Her initial acts of kindness, the compliments, the shared information, these aren't simply acts of generosity. They are strategic investments designed to create a sense of obligation in Mark. She's subtly positioning herself as his benefactor, making him feel indebted to her. As Mark becomes increasingly reliant on Sarah's support, she subtly begins to exert influence over his decisions. She might steer him away from certain projects that she sees as opportunities for herself, or subtly criticize his ideas in meetings, subtly undermining his credibility. Because Mark values Sarah's opinion and feels indebted to her, he's more likely to accept her suggestions and to downplay his own instincts. He's caught in a web of subtle manipulation, unaware that his genuine appreciation for Sarah's kindness is being exploited. The truly insidious aspect of this scenario is that Sarah's actions are rarely overt. She doesn't make direct demands or issue blatant commands. Instead, she operates through subtle suggestions, carefully worded criticisms, and strategic acts of kindness. This makes it difficult for Mark to recognize that he's being manipulated. He sees Sarah as a friend, not as a puppeteer pulling his strings. He's blinded by his own desire to reciprocate her kindness, unable to see the underlying power dynamics at play. The consequences of this manipulation can be significant for Mark's career. He may miss out on opportunities, have his ideas undermined, and ultimately find himself lagging behind Sarah in the race to the top. He may even develop a sense of resentment towards Sarah, but be unable to articulate why he feels that way. He only knows that something feels wrong, but he can't quite put his finger on it. This scenario highlights the importance of understanding the principle of reciprocity and recognizing how it can be used to manipulate others. It's not about becoming paranoid or distrustful of everyone you meet. It's about developing a keen awareness of social dynamics and recognizing when someone's kindness might be motivated by something other than genuine altruism. It's about understanding that even seemingly harmless interactions can be part of a larger game of power and influence. To protect yourself from such manipulation, it's crucial to be mindful of the obligations you incur and to avoid feeling pressured to reciprocate in ways that are detrimental to your own interests. It's about setting boundaries and being willing to say no, even to those who have been kind to you in the past. It's about recognizing that true friendships are based on mutual respect and genuine connection, not on a calculated exchange of favors. In Mark's case, he could have protected himself by being more aware of Sarah's underlying motivations, by being more assertive in expressing his own ideas, and by setting clear boundaries in their relationship. He could have recognized that Sarah's constant praise might be a tactic to inflate his ego and make him more susceptible to her influence. He could have also sought out advice from other colleagues, gaining a more objective perspective on the situation. Ultimately, the key is to be vigilant, to be observant, and to be willing to question the motives of others, even when they appear to be acting in your best interest. The social landscape is a complex and often treacherous terrain, and those who navigate it with awareness and strategic thinking are far more likely to succeed. And remember, even genuine kindness can be a calculated move in a larger game. It is not about rejecting kindness, but understanding its potential role in a power dynamic. The most common trap individuals fall into is surrendering their personal frame. This happens when they allow the opinions, emotions, or actions of others to dictate their own sense of self-worth or direction. In essence, they become reactive, constantly adjusting their behavior to seek approval or avoid disapproval. This reactive state is a position of weakness, easily exploited by those who are more assertive or manipulative. Think of it as relinquishing control of your own narrative, allowing someone else to write your story. The person who controls the narrative controls the perception, and the person who controls the perception controls the outcome. When you surrender your frame, you essentially hand over the power to influence that outcome to someone else. It's not about being inflexible or unwilling to compromise. It's about maintaining a strong internal compass that guides your decisions and actions, regardless of external pressures. Without a strong internal frame, individuals become susceptible to a variety of manipulative tactics, including guilt-tripping, emotional blackmail, and social pressure. They may find themselves agreeing to things they don't want to do, compromising their values, or even sacrificing their own well-being in an attempt to appease others. This constant need for external validation can lead to a cycle of dependence, where the individual becomes increasingly reliant on the opinions of others and less confident in their own judgment. The antidote to this trap is self-awareness and a commitment to personal integrity. It requires understanding your own values, beliefs, and goals, and being willing to defend them, even in the face of opposition. It also requires developing the ability to recognize and resist manipulative tactics, and to set boundaries that protect your own well-being. It's about building an inner fortress that cannot be easily breached by the opinions or actions of others. The weak often seek validation in external sources because they have not cultivated internal strength. Another significant downfall stems from a fear of confrontation. The avoidance of conflict, while seemingly peaceful on the surface, often leads to a slow erosion of personal power and respect. When individuals consistently shy away from asserting their needs or challenging unfair treatment, they signal to others that they are willing to be taken advantage of. This doesn't mean seeking out conflict for the sake of it, but rather having the courage to stand up for yourself when necessary. Think of it as defending your territory. If you allow others to encroach upon it without resistance, they will eventually come to believe that it is theirs for the taking. The fear of confrontation often stems from a fear of rejection or disapproval. Individuals may worry that asserting themselves will damage relationships or lead to negative consequences. However, in many cases, the opposite is true. Respect is earned through assertiveness and self-respect. When you demonstrate that you are willing to stand up for yourself, others are more likely to treat you with consideration and fairness. Avoiding confrontation can also lead to resentment and bitterness, as unaddressed grievances fester and erode your sense of well-being. It is important to differentiate between healthy conflict and unnecessary aggression. Healthy conflict involves expressing your needs and opinions in a respectful and assertive manner, while being open to hearing the perspectives of others. Unnecessary aggression, on the other hand, involves attacking or belittling others in an attempt to dominate the situation. The key is to find a balance between assertiveness and empathy, expressing your needs while also being mindful of the needs and feelings of others. Develop your ability to navigate disagreements and find mutually beneficial solutions. This is a skill that will serve you well in all aspects of your life. Remember, true strength lies not in avoiding conflict, but in facing it with courage and integrity. The weak believe any confrontation is a bad outcome and do not appreciate the nuanced dance that it truly is. Furthermore, a pervasive naivete regarding human nature sets many up for failure. Assuming that everyone operates with the same level of honesty and good intentions is a dangerous misconception. While it is not necessary to become cynical or distrustful of everyone, it is crucial to develop a realistic understanding of the motivations and behaviors of others. This involves recognizing that some individuals are driven by self-interest, a desire for power, or even malice. It means understanding that not everyone has your best interests at heart, and that some people may be willing to manipulate or exploit you to achieve their own goals. The naive individual often trusts too easily, failing to recognize the warning signs of deception or manipulation. They may be overly generous or accommodating, making them easy targets for those who are looking to take advantage of them. They may also be unwilling to believe that someone would intentionally harm them, even when the evidence is clear. Developing a realistic understanding of human nature requires careful observation, critical thinking, and a willingness to challenge your own assumptions. It means paying attention to people's actions, rather than just their words. It means being skeptical of overly flattering or seemingly altruistic behavior. It means understanding that people's motivations are often complex and multifaceted, and that there may be hidden agendas at play. This is not about becoming paranoid or suspicious of everyone, but rather about developing a healthy sense of discernment. It's about being able to evaluate people and situations objectively, and to make informed decisions based on your understanding of human behavior. The social world is a complex ecosystem, and those who navigate it with awareness and strategic thinking are far more likely to thrive. A failure to understand predators exist is to become prey. Finally, the inability to detach emotionally from outcomes is a crippling weakness. When individuals become overly invested in specific results, they become vulnerable to manipulation and emotional distress. This is because their happiness and well-being become contingent on external factors, which are often outside of their control. Think of it as building your house on sand. If the foundation is unstable, the entire structure is at risk of collapsing. Emotional detachment does not mean being indifferent or uncaring. Rather, it means maintaining a sense of perspective and recognizing that setbacks and failures are a normal part of life. It means being able to accept outcomes that are not ideal without allowing them to derail your emotional state. Individuals who are emotionally attached to outcomes are more likely to experience anxiety, stress, and disappointment. They may also be more susceptible to manipulation, as others can exploit their desire for specific results to gain an advantage. Developing emotional detachment requires cultivating inner resilience and self-acceptance. It means recognizing that your worth as a person is not dependent on your accomplishments or failures. It means being able to find meaning and purpose in the process of pursuing your goals, rather than solely focusing on the end result. It also means developing coping mechanisms for dealing with setbacks and disappointments, such as mindfulness, meditation, or seeking support from friends and family. Emotional detachment is not about suppressing your emotions, but rather about managing them in a healthy and constructive way. It's about being able to experience your emotions without being overwhelmed by them. It's about maintaining a sense of inner peace and stability, regardless of external circumstances. The ability to detach emotionally is a sign of strength and maturity. It allows you to navigate the challenges of life with greater clarity, resilience, and effectiveness. The weak are controlled by their passions because they cannot control their passions. The Machiavellian approach takes this emotional detachment a step further, not just as a means of personal well-being, but as a strategic tool for navigating social interactions and achieving desired outcomes. It involves a calculated assessment of situations and individuals, devoid of sentimental considerations. The core principle is to understand people's motivations, vulnerabilities, and emotional triggers, and then to use this knowledge to influence their behavior. This doesn't necessarily imply malicious intent, but rather a pragmatic approach to achieving one's goals, even if it means employing tactics that might be considered morally ambiguous by some. The Machiavellian strategist views human relationships as a complex game of power, influence, and manipulation. They recognize that people are often driven by self-interest, and that their actions are often predictable based on their desires and fears. By understanding these underlying motivations, the Machiavellian strategist can anticipate how people will react in different situations and can tailor their own behavior accordingly. This might involve flattery, persuasion, or even deception, depending on what is required to achieve the desired outcome. The key is to remain objective and unemotional, and to always keep the end goal in sight. Emotional considerations are seen as a liability, as they can cloud judgment and lead to impulsive actions. The Machiavellian strategist is not concerned with being liked or admired, but rather with being effective. Their primary focus is on achieving their goals, and they are willing to do whatever it takes, within reason, to succeed. This doesn't mean that they are completely devoid of empathy, but rather that they are able to set aside their personal feelings in order to make rational decisions. They understand that sometimes it is necessary to make difficult choices, even if those choices might hurt other people. The Machiavellian approach also involves a deep understanding of human psychology. This includes understanding cognitive biases, emotional triggers, and the various techniques that can be used to influence people's thoughts and behaviors. For example, the Machiavellian strategist might use framing techniques to present information in a way that is more likely to persuade someone to agree with their point of view. They might also use social proof to convince someone that their idea is popular or widely accepted. The goal is to create a perception of reality that favors their own interests. Furthermore, the Machiavellian approach emphasizes the importance of adaptability and flexibility. The social landscape is constantly changing, and the Machiavellian strategist must be able to adapt their tactics accordingly. What works in one situation might not work in another, and the Machiavellian strategist must be able to recognize when it is necessary to change their approach. This requires a high degree of self-awareness and the ability to learn from experience. The Machiavellian strategist is always observing and analyzing the behavior of others, and they are constantly refining their strategies based on what they learn. They are also willing to experiment with different tactics, and they are not afraid to fail. Failure is seen as an opportunity to learn and improve. Ultimately, The Machiavellian approach is about understanding the dynamics of power and influence in social interactions, and using this knowledge to achieve one's goals. It's about recognizing that people are often driven by self-interest, and that their behavior can be influenced through a combination of persuasion, manipulation, and strategic maneuvering. It requires emotional detachment, a deep understanding of human psychology, and the ability to adapt to changing circumstances. While the Machiavellian approach may not be for everyone, it can be a powerful tool for those who are willing to embrace its principles. It's important to note that the Machiavellian approach is not without its ethical considerations. Some people